There is a moment, almost imperceptible to most people, when the world becomes strangely quiet and the mind releases its grip on everything it held tightly throughout the day. It's not the morning or the afternoon, nor is it the instant you finally close your eyes. It is a small, delicate threshold, just a few breaths before sleep, when the conscious mind loosens its armor, and the deeper mind rises like a tide. Florence Scovel Shinn devoted grande parte seu ensinamento espirituale esse momento, affermando che ella porta silenziosa pella quale abundancia, a cura e a transformacao entram sem resistencia. She described it not as a mystical secret reserved for a select few, but as a natural state that every human being experiences, yet rarely uses with intention. In her view, what you place inside that doorway determines what will shape your inner and outer life upon waking. A maioria das pessoas dita exausta, carregando preocupações como se fossem mantas passadas, contas atrasadas, conflitos não resolvidos, memórias incomodas, medos antigos. They lie down replaying everything that went wrong or everything they fear might go wrong tomorrow. And because the mind is still active in those final moments before sleep, that mental noise sinks into the subconscious as if it were a command. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that the subconscious is not a critic, not a judge, not an analyst. It is a builder, a fertile soil that grows whatever seed is placed within it. So if someone falls asleep immersed in worry, the subconscious works the whole night expanding that same frequency, like a gardener tending weeds instead of blossoms. But if someone enters sleep carrying a declaration of trust, provision, peace or abundance, the subconscious responds with the same loyalty, multiplying what it was given. Florence Scovel Shinn often compared the subconscious to a loyal assistant who works tirelessly in the background. She said that during waking hours, we constantly interrupt the assistant with doubts, questions, contradictions, fears, and logic. But when we approach sleep, that interference quiets down, and the assistant is finally free to follow instructions without disruption. And that is the essence of what she called the night declaration. A deliberate, steady message spoken or mentally affirmed right before drifting into sleep, allowing the mind's deepest layer to accept it as truth. This is not a prayer of pleading, nor a request based on anxiety. It is a confident statement made with emotional conviction, placed gently into the subconscious so it can build in silence. What makes this moment so powerful is the natural shift in brain states. Modern science would later call it the hypnagogic phase, a soft landing zone where imagination becomes vivid, rational thinking becomes slow and porous, and meaning is absorbed effortlessly. Florence Scovel Shinn recognized this long before neuroscientists studied it. She said that when the conscious mind relaxes, the subconscious stands open like a field at dawn, waiting for instruction. And whatever enters during that window, whether a phrase, an image, a memory, or a feeling, is treated as if it were a direct order from the soul itself. This is why she insisted that the final thoughts of the day are more important than any affirmations repeated in the morning or afternoon. The last message is the one that echoes the longest. Imagine someone who has spent the entire day feeling overwhelmed, believing that money is scarce, that opportunities are distant, that life is pushing against them. If that person lays in bed and repeats quietly, "Nothing ever works out for me," the subconscious absorbs that statement like a somber anthem and carries it through the night. But if that same person, minutes before falling asleep, breathes slowly and says with certainty, "Divine supply flows to me now with ease," the internal landscape shifts. The subconscious receives a different blueprint and begins organizing thoughts, emotions, insights, and energetic patterns around abundance rather than lack. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that this reorganization is what causes people to wake up with new ideas, stronger intuition, and a refreshed sense of possibility. She often reminded her students that the subconscious cannot distinguish imagination from reality. To the deeper mind, an imagined success and a lived success carry the same emotional weight. So when someone visualizes themselves receiving unexpected opportunities, solving financial problems with clarity, or feeling secure and supported, the subconscious adopts those images as its foundation. Over time, these inner images begin shaping behaviors and perceptions, leading to real-world outcomes. Florence Scovel Shinn emphasized that everyone is living inside the results of their subconscious beliefs, although few people realize how actively they contributed to those beliefs through their nightly thoughts. By using the night declaration intentionally, the relationship between the conscious and subconscious minds becomes harmonious rather than conflicted. During the day, the conscious mind navigates tasks, responsibilities, and challenges. At night, the subconscious arranges everything beneath the surface: beliefs, expectations, emotional patterns, and intuitive insight. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that when the conscious mind chooses empowering words before sleep, it passes the torch gracefully, allowing the subconscious to continue the work in alignment with abundance, not fear. This simple act begins shifting a person's entire energetic identity. People who ignore the importance of their bedtime thoughts often wonder why they wake up feeling drained, unmotivated, or heavy. But according to Florence Scovel Shinn, the emotional climate of the morning is simply the harvest of the seeds planted the night before. If someone falls asleep rehearsing disasters, the subconscious spends the night magnifying that energy. If someone falls asleep stating with certainty that they are guided, supported, prosperous, and safe, the subconscious spends the night reinforcing that foundation. The night declaration, therefore, is not merely a practice. It is a nightly reset, a renewal of inner alignment, an intentional collaboration with the universe. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that abundance is not created through force, fear, or desperate effort, but through inner alignment. And the most accessible moment to establish this alignment is just before sleep. When a person embraces this moment instead of wasting it on worry, their entire life begins to shift. They enter the next morning not as someone repeating old patterns, but as someone who has quietly begun rewriting their destiny from the inside out. This is the reason she encouraged people to choose words that resonate deeply, not mechanically. She said that the subconscious responds to emotion more than vocabulary, to sincerity more than complexity. A heartfelt statement, spoken with genuine feeling right before sleep, carries more influence than hours of anxious thinking. The night declaration is a reminder that the universe is always responding, not to what we fear, but to what we faithfully claim as truth. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the human mind is like a doorway with two guardians, one that questions everything and one that accepts without hesitation. The first guardian stands watch throughout the day, filtering thoughts, analyzing details, comparing possibilities, and challenging anything that appears unfamiliar or uncomfortable. But at night, as the body relaxes and the thinking slows, that analytical guardian steps aside. What remains is the second guardian, the one that receives messages without resistance, the one that shapes identity, behavior, and emotional patterns. She believed that speaking a clear declaration during this transition allows a person to bypass years of doubt in just a few breaths. It is not that the conscious mind disappears, it simply softens its defenses, opening a passage straight into the deeper parts of the self that govern belief. In many of her teachings, Florence Scovel Shinn explained that people often sabotage their own progress by carrying contradictory messages inside them. Someone may spend the day hoping for financial improvement, but when night falls, their mind replays the same old story. I'm behind, I'm worried, I don't know how to fix this. That repetition becomes the dominant narrative, not because they want it, but because they unknowingly reinforce it during the most influential moment of the entire day. The subconscious takes those statements literally, as if they were instructions. And so the person continues waking up inside the same emotional landscape, unable to understand why life seems to repeat itself. She viewed this cycle as a kind of internal hypnosis, one that people perform on themselves unintentionally. To reverse this cycle, the night declaration needs to be intentional, grounded, and spoken with emotional weight. Florence Scovel Shinn emphasized that even a short phrase, spoken with conviction, can carry tremendous creative force. But she also taught that the words should feel genuine. A declaration that sounds good, but carries no emotion will rarely penetrate the subconscious. The words must be chosen with care, like a gardener choosing seeds that match the garden they wish to grow. If someone desires financial freedom, the declaration might center on provision, support, or trust. If someone desires clarity, the declaration might focus on guidance and insight. If someone desires stability, the declaration might center on calmness and confidence. She believed that people instinctively know what phrase resonates with them most, and that resonance is the signal the subconscious listens to. Another principle she stressed was the power of repetition, not mechanical repetition, but mindful repetition. When a person repeats a phrase deliberately, allowing each word to land fully, the subconscious begins accepting the idea as familiar. Familiarity breeds belief, and belief becomes the inner blueprint of life. Florence Scovel Shinn compared this to waves brushing against the shore. Each repetition carries a little more sand with it, reshaping the coastline of the mind. Over time, the old contours dissolve and the new patterns take shape. She insisted that this reshaping happens most effectively at night, when the subconscious is not competing with the noise of daytime worries or external pressures. Many people underestimate how deeply the subconscious influences their daily actions. Florence Scovel Shinn explained that the subconscious triggers intuitive nudges, subtle ideas, emotional tendencies, and even physical energy. Someone who falls asleep declaring abundance will often wake up feeling unexpectedly calm or inspired, with solutions appearing in places they hadn't noticed before. They may find themselves making different choices throughout the day, not because they force themselves, but because the subconscious is pulling them toward a new direction. She described this as the universe rearranging things behind the scenes, aligning experiences that match the inner declaration. When the subconscious is filled with images of support, guidance, and provision, life begins responding to those expectations. And although Florence Scovel Shinn taught that words are important, she also emphasized the value of emotional imagery. Before sleep, when the mind becomes more imaginative, visualizing abundance or peace makes the declaration even stronger. Someone might imagine a scenario where an unexpected opportunity arrives, or a bill is resolved effortlessly, or they wake up feeling light and confident. The subconscious translates those scenes into emotional codes, which then influence how a person feels in the morning. In her view, imagination is not fantasy. It is a creative language that the subconscious understands perfectly. When paired with a clear declaration, imagery becomes a powerful amplifier of manifestation. She reminded her students that consistency is more important than intensity. A person doesn't need to repeat their declaration loudly or dramatically. They simply need to do it regularly. The subconscious responds to patterns, and nighttime is the ideal moment to establish a new pattern. Even if someone feels tired or uncertain, simply whispering a sincere sentence before sleep is enough to reinforce belief. Florence Scovel Shinn said that the universe responds to the direction of a person's faith, not the volume of their voice. A soft statement made with trust carries more power than a loud speech filled with doubt. Some individuals experience a sense of relief the moment the declaration sinks in, as if the body finally relaxes into the truth being spoken. Others feel a gentle shift, a sense of warmth or calmness spreading through their chest. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that these sensations are signs that the subconscious has accepted the message. But even those who feel nothing at all should continue, because the absence of immediate sensation does not mean the absence of transformation. The subconscious is always listening, always shaping, always responding. Trust builds slowly, one night at a time, like a small flame that grows brighter with each breath of faith. One of the most profound insights she offered is that a person cannot plant abundance at night and then spend the day contradicting it. Consistency matters. If someone declares prosperity before sleep but spends the next day affirming scarcity, the subconscious receives mixed instructions. Florence Scovel Shinn encouraged people to support their nighttime declarations with at least a few moments of aligned thinking during the day, just enough to maintain an inner atmosphere of trust. This does not require perfection, only willingness. She said that the subconscious doesn't demand flawless belief. It simply needs direction. The night declaration is not a performance. It is not meant to impress anyone or follow rigid rules. It is a conversation between the individual and the creative intelligence that shapes reality. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that this intelligence, call it divine guidance, universal law, or spiritual supply, responds instantly to sincerity. When someone speaks from the heart, the universe listens. When someone speaks with trust, the universe acts. She taught that abundance is not given randomly. It is cultivated intentionally through inner alignment. And that alignment begins when a person chooses what message to whisper into the darkness before sleep. Now, before we move forward, This might be a perfect moment to invite you to support this channel. If these teachings from Florence Scovel Shinn awaken something meaningful in you, consider subscribing so you can receive more insights like this. And here vi pedido differente. In the comments, share the feeling, not the words, you most often carry into sleep. Are you usually calm, tense, hopeful, distracted? Your response might help someone else recognize their own pattern and begin transforming it. Florence Scovel Shinn often emphasized that many of the financial struggles people face are not rooted in external circumstances, but in the subtle beliefs absorbed throughout life. She explained that these beliefs lodge themselves in the subconscious like old signatures etched into stone, shaping the way individuals respond to challenges, how they interpret opportunities, and what they feel they deserve. For example, someone who grew up hearing that wealth is dangerous or that success comes only through hardship may unconsciously reject opportunities because deep inside, they feel unworthy or afraid of the very thing they consciously desire. These contradictory patterns become most visible during moments of fatigue, especially right before sleep, when the conscious mind relaxes and the deeper layers of belief rise toward awareness. It's during this threshold that people notice their true inner dialogue. Some hear a quiet internal voice whispering that things will never improve. Others feel a sense of heaviness when they imagine their future. Some experience anxiety as soon as they turn off the lights. Florence Scovel Shinn encouraged her students not to fear these moments, but to use them as mirrors revealing the beliefs that need to be rewritten. She taught that the night declaration functions like a spiritual brush that gradually clears away old inscriptions and replaces them with messages of confidence, abundance, and divine support. And although this shift requires consistency, she insisted that the process is gentle and kind, never harsh or overwhelming. People often wonder why financial breakthroughs sometimes arrive unexpectedly, as if out of nowhere. Florence Scovel Shinn offered a simple explanation. The subconscious works within an invisible dimension where solutions already exist, and when belief aligns with possibility, the path to those solutions emerges naturally. When someone repeatedly affirms that supply flows to them through divine channels, the subconscious begins noticing opportunities that were previously ignored. They become more receptive to new ideas, more confident in their skills, more attuned to positive coincidences. What once felt impossible becomes feasible simply because the inner resistance has loosened. She described the subconscious as the great connector, capable of linking a person with opportunities that match their internal state. One of Florence Scovel Shinn's most insightful teachings was her view that worry is a form of negative rehearsal. She believed that every time someone imagines a disastrous outcome, they are mentally practicing the very experience they fear. The subconscious, unable to distinguish rehearsal from reality, responds by heightening anxiety, influencing behavior, and amplifying anticipation of failure. In contrast, a clear declaration of abundance before sleep becomes a positive rehearsal, one that sets the mind into a state of expectation rather than dread. When someone consistently falls asleep declaring that provision is unfolding for them, the subconscious begins preparing them emotionally and mentally to receive. The shift is subtle at first but grows stronger over time. Another powerful element of the night declaration is its ability to quiet the internal noise that accumulates throughout the day. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that many people lose their sense of direction because they absorb emotional residue from conversations, environments, and external stresses. This clutter becomes heavy, like a fog covering the inner compass. By speaking a declaration before sleep, the fog begins to lift. The subconscious receives a fresh instruction, a new focal point, a clear direction. As a result, the person wakes not only lighter but more aligned with their purpose. They feel guided rather than lost, supported rather than overwhelmed. Florence Scovel Shinn also taught that gratitude is not merely an emotion, it is a spiritual technology. She described gratitude as the seal that completes the night declaration, the signature that finalizes the contract with the universe. When someone ends their declaration by feeling grateful for what they haven't yet received, they bridge the gap between desire and manifestation. Gratitude communicates certainty, and certainty is the language the subconscious understands most fluently. When spoken sincerely, gratitude wraps the declaration in an energy that cannot be contradicted by fear. It assures the subconscious that the outcome is already unfolding, allowing it to work without internal interference. Many of her students reported that their dreams began to change after practicing the night declaration consistently. Florence Scovel Shinn explained that the subconscious uses dreams as a symbolic workshop, arranging emotions, thoughts, and insights into meaningful patterns. When someone feeds the subconscious with words of abundance before sleep, dreams begin reflecting prosperity, safety, and possibility. Instead of recurring nightmares about loss or failure, people start dreaming of solutions, breakthroughs, or supportive situations. These dreams are not random. They indicate that the subconscious has received the declaration and is integrating it into the deeper layers of belief. She viewed dreams as previews of the internal transformation occurring beneath awareness. Over time, this nightly practice reshapes the way a person perceives themselves. Someone who once felt insecure begins waking up with a subtle sense of dignity. Someone who felt powerless begins noticing their own ability to influence their circumstances. Someone who believed opportunities were scarce begins recognizing how many chances life constantly offers. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that this shift in identity is the true miracle of the night declaration. Not the money itself, but the internal empowerment that naturally brings abundance. When someone begins seeing themselves as worthy, supported, and guided, life expands to match that identity. An important truth she highlighted is that the night declaration is not a replacement for action. Instead, it prepares the person to take the right actions with clarity and confidence. Many people act from desperation, fear, or confusion, which leads to exhausting detours. But when someone wakes up aligned with abundance, their choices become more intuitive. They sense when to move, when to wait, when to say yes, and when to decline. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that aligned action always feels natural, never forced. The night declaration clears the inner static so the person can hear their own guidance more clearly. Some individuals struggle when their external circumstances take time to change. They worry that the declaration isn't working. But Florence Scovel Shinn reminded her students that the subconscious reorganizes beliefs gradually, like layers of old paint being smoothed away. She taught that spiritual seeds do not bloom instantly. They grow in silence before appearing in the physical world. Consistency is what nourishes them. Each night strengthens the new belief, just as repeated drops of water eventually carve stone. Transformation becomes inevitable because the subconscious cannot resist a message given with sincerity night after night. She often said that the universe honors persistence more than intensity. A single night of declaration might bring peace. Several nights might bring clarity. But weeks or months of consistency cause the subconscious to rebuild identity entirely. And when identity shifts, reality follows. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that this steady practice turns a person into a conscious co-creator of their life, rather than a passive observer. Florence Scovel Shinn often said that the greatest transformation occurs not when something external changes, but when someone realizes they have the authority to direct their inner world. She believed that the night declaration was one of the simplest yet most powerful ways to claim that authority. While many individuals spend years trying to fix circumstances through force, strategy, or constant worry, she taught that circumstances shift most effectively when the inner atmosphere shifts first. When a person decides what they want to feel, what they want to believe, and what they want to embody before sleep, they begin rerouting the very energy that shapes their reality. The subconscious takes these instructions and works tirelessly through the night, rearranging old emotional patterns, dissolving outdated expectations, and strengthening new internal structures. One of her profound revelations was the idea that people unknowingly break their own progress by returning each morning to the same emotional habits that kept them stuck. She explained that the moment after waking is equally sensitive to influence, because the mind has not yet fully re-engaged with the external world. The subconscious is still active, still processing the message it carried through the night. If someone wakes up and immediately floods their mind with fear, irritation, or stress, they interrupt the work the subconscious has been performing. But if they awaken gently, honoring the emotional nourishment of the night declaration, they carry the vibration forward into the day. This creates a bridge between the inner transformation of the night and the outer experience of the morning. Florence Scovel Shinn understood that human beings are emotional creatures, guided far more by feeling than by logic. She taught that abundance is not attracted through cold reasoning, but through emotional resonance. When someone feels supported, they behave courageously. When someone feels confident, they take action without hesitation. When someone feels worthy, they stop settling for situations that undermine their value. For this reason, the emotional tone of the night declaration matters as much as the words themselves. A declaration spoken with trust, even if simple, carries more power than a long statement spoken mechanically. The emotion becomes the compass for the subconscious, guiding it like a river that knows exactly where to flow. A remarkable aspect of her teachings is the way she emphasized that abundance is a natural state, not a reward for struggle. She believed that human beings are born with an innate connection to divine supply, an invisible current of support, opportunities, and intuitive guidance that surrounds everyone. But as people grow up, they adopt limiting beliefs from family, culture, or personal experiences that block this natural flow. The night declaration functions as a gentle clearing process, dissolving emotional debris that has accumulated over years. Florence Scovel Shinn said that once the inner blockages soften, abundance flows not because it suddenly appears, but because the person is finally able to receive what was there all along. Another powerful insight from her teachings is that the subconscious often communicates through subtle nudges rather than dramatic signs. Someone might feel a quiet impulse to send a message, revisit an idea, follow a small opportunity, or adjust a habit. These impulses are not random. They are signs that the subconscious is aligning the person with their declaration. Florence Scovel Shinn encouraged individuals to honor these small prompts. She believed that intuition becomes sharper when someone regularly speaks to the subconscious with clarity and trust. The night declaration strengthens that communication, making the internal guidance system more reliable and easier to recognize. She also taught that spiritual alignment does not erase challenges, but it changes how someone meets them. When a person falls asleep affirming divine supply, they cultivate a mindset that can remain calm even in uncertain situations. Rather than seeing obstacles as threats, they see them as temporary conditions that cannot override the deeper truth they planted before sleep. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that this calmness is not passive, it is powerful. A calm mind perceives solutions more clearly. A calm heart remains open to possibilities that stress would normally conceal. The night declaration, when practiced consistently, builds an inner resilience that can withstand unexpected events without collapsing into fear. Florence Scovel Shinn often used the metaphor of a sculptor to describe how the subconscious works. A sculptor shapes stone by removing what does not belong. Similarly, the subconscious reshapes belief by removing emotional patterns that contradict abundance. But the sculptor must have a clear vision of the final form. In the same way, the subconscious needs a clear declaration, a blueprint, to follow. Without it, the mind defaults to old fears and assumptions. With a declaration, the subconscious begins chiseling away inner resistance and smoothing the emotional surface until the person's identity matches their desired reality. Interestingly, she believed that some people fear abundance without realizing it. They fear responsibility, visibility, change, or the unknown. For these individuals, the night declaration is especially transformative because it addresses fear at the subconscious level, where rational arguments cannot reach. When someone repeatedly affirms that they are safe, guided, and supported, the subconscious relaxes its protective barriers. This relaxation invites abundance in ways the conscious mind alone could never orchestrate. Florence Scovel Shinn explained that fear cannot survive in a mind filled with declarations of divine support, because faith and fear cannot occupy the same emotional space. She also emphasized that the night declaration should be spoken with humility and reverence, not arrogance. Abundance, in her view, is a spiritual partnership between the individual and the divine. The person expresses intention, and the universe responds with guidance, synchronicities, and opportunities. The declaration is the bridge between these two forces, a quiet conversation that aligns them. She described this alignment as a dance. Neither force dominates, neither force withdraws. Together, they create a rhythm that carries the person toward their highest potential. Another key teaching from Florence Scovel Shinn was that the subconscious needs consistency to override old patterns. People often expect instant results, but emotional architecture takes time to rebuild. She encouraged her students to trust the process even when external evidence was still forming. She insisted that nothing spoken with sincerity is ever wasted. Every declaration contributes to the reshaping of belief, even if the person does not feel the shift immediately. Over time, subtle changes accumulate into noticeable transformation. A person who once felt overwhelmed begins waking up with energy. Someone who felt unlucky begins noticing opportunities. Someone who felt unsupported begins encountering people who help them unexpectedly. The night declaration is therefore not merely a bedtime habit. It is a nightly return to the truth of divine supply. It is a ritual of alignment, a reaffirmation of trust, a quiet remembrance that abundance responds most powerfully to a peaceful heart. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that when someone places this truth at the door of their subconscious every night, their life begins to reshape itself with remarkable precision. Florence Scovel Shinn often reminded her students that abundance responds most directly to the state of consciousness a person carries into their rest. She viewed the night declaration not as a mystical shortcut, but as a simple discipline that trains the mind to align with spiritual truth every single night. Through this alignment, a person gradually becomes someone who expects good, someone who trusts in provision, someone who naturally attracts opportunities because they no longer sabotage themselves with hidden patterns of fear. This shift is subtle but transformative. A person stops bracing for disappointment and begins anticipating support. They stop assuming scarcity and begin noticing the countless ways life supplies what is needed. In her teachings, this was not psychological optimism. It was energetic law. She described the subconscious as a magnetic field made of belief and emotion. Whatever is held there consistently is broadcast into the world, shaping encounters, decisions, intuitions, and even timing. The night declaration becomes the moment when that field is recalibrated intentionally, so that the person becomes a magnet for experiences that match abundance. Someone who repeatedly plants trust before sleep gradually feels less threatened by uncertainty, less intimidated by goals, less reactive to setbacks. Their confidence becomes steady, quiet, and resilient. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that this emotional grounding is what attracts abundance more effectively than any frantic attempt to control life. A stable mind invites stable opportunities. Many individuals assume that abundance arrives as a sudden breakthrough, but Florence Scovel Shinn emphasized that the greatest shifts often appear as subtle internal changes first. A person wakes up one morning with a new sense of clarity. On another day, they feel gently guided toward an idea that solves a long-standing issue. On another morning, they recognize that something that once triggered fear now feels manageable. These small internal victories build on one another until the external world begins to reflect them. Someone might receive a call, an unexpected opportunity, a piece of information, or a chance encounter that feels almost divinely orchestrated. She explained that these events are not accidents. They are the outer manifestation of inner alignment cultivated night after night. Florence Scovel Shinn also taught that abundance naturally flows toward individuals who have learned to release emotional resistance. Resistance is subtle. It may appear as the habit of expecting disappointment, the fear of taking risks, or the belief that others are more deserving of success. These patterns are often invisible during the day because the conscious mind stays busy. But at night, when the mind becomes extremely honest, these fears surface quietly. The night declaration gradually dissolves this resistance by replacing fear-based thoughts with statements rooted in trust and truth. Over time, the subconscious grows accustomed to these new instructions and begins rejecting fear automatically. What once felt like a heavy weight begins lifting, allowing abundance to enter more freely. She believed that the night declaration should be personalized to reflect the deepest desires of the heart. No one else can choose the perfect phrase because the subconscious responds most strongly to words that feel emotionally true for the individual. For one person, a declaration centered on divine support may feel powerful. For another, a declaration about receiving opportunities with ease may resonate more deeply. Florence Scovel Shinn encouraged people to notice the subtle emotional reaction they feel when they speak a certain phrase. If the phrase causes a sense of peace, warmth, or confidence, that is the subconscious signaling resonance. That is the phrase to use. She also emphasized that sincerity is more important than eloquence. A declaration spoken simply, without elaborate vocabulary, can penetrate deeply as long as it is spoken with feeling. The subconscious is moved by authenticity, not decoration. Many students reported that their most effective declarations were short sentences spoken gently but with unwavering faith. This simplicity allows the mind to relax rather than strain. The subconscious does not need poetic structure. It needs emotional truth. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the universe always responds to sincerity because sincerity reflects alignment between heart and intention. As people continue practicing the night declaration, they often realize that the most significant transformation is not the material abundance they receive, but the person they become in the process. Someone who once feared uncertainty begins trusting the unfolding of life. Someone who once carried self-doubt begins recognizing their own worth. Someone who once lived in survival mode begins experiencing inner peace as their default state. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that abundance is the natural expression of a mind that feels secure, loved, guided, and supported. The night declaration nurtures these emotional foundations, allowing abundance to grow organically from within. One of the most empowering effects of the night declaration is the sense of inner companionship it creates. People often fall asleep feeling alone with their fears, but Florence Scovel Shinn taught that speaking a declaration reminds the subconscious that divine support is always present. This creates a sense of partnership with the universe, a feeling that one is not navigating life alone. Over time, this companionship becomes a deep internal knowing, a quiet certainty that guidance is always available. This sense of partnership alters the way a person interprets life. Challenges no longer feel like punishments, but stepping stones. Delays no longer feel like failures, but preparation. Another dimension of her teaching is the idea that abundance expands as a person expands. When someone practices the night declaration, they begin developing courage to pursue opportunities they once avoided. They become more receptive to new ideas, more open to growth, more willing to take inspired action. Their inner transformation unlocks external possibilities because they no longer limit themselves through fear or hesitation. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that abundance responds to readiness, and readiness is cultivated through nightly alignment. She also encouraged individuals to maintain emotional consistency throughout the day, even if imperfectly. A person doesn't need to maintain perfect positivity. They simply need to avoid contradicting their declaration with persistent negativity. If fear arises during the day, they can pause briefly, breathe, and remember the truth they spoke before sleep. This small gesture keeps the subconscious anchored. It prevents the person from undoing the progress they made during the night. Consistency does not require rigidity. It requires intention. Ultimately, Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the night declaration is a gift a person gives to their future self. Every night becomes an investment in the emotional, spiritual, and material experiences of tomorrow. Each declaration plants a seed that grows while the body rests. Each repetition strengthens belief. And each morning becomes a new beginning shaped by the confidence spoken the night before. Over time, life becomes less about reacting to circumstances and more about designing them from within. Before we close, if this message brought clarity or sparked something meaningful inside you, consider subscribing to the channel so you can receive more teachings inspired by Florence Scovel Shinn. And I would love to hear from you. Share in the comments a moment when you felt guided or supported in a surprising way. Your story may become the encouragement someone else needs to start their own nightly transformation.